2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is one back. Welcome on, Freddie Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Anthony Witrado. Anthony, the intro video ends with Chris Taylor coming up with a big hit off the bat. Off the bat, I thought we were finding some grass out there in the gap, but no dice. Dodgers end up losing this one 3-2 to the Orioles. The offense comes up short despite Jack Flaherty giving I would say a positive performance, although some injury concerns we'll get to here in a little bit.
Yeah, when he hit that ball, it was obvious it was hit well, and then they showed the camera to the outfield, and they look at both the outfielders and trying to see where they're going to converge, and then the left fielder stops, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
gosh,
yeah, tough one, and I see some people in the chat. As always, we appreciate everyone joining us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We're going to get to some of the umpiring there as well. We got a super chat here from 300 GJW. Freddie Freeman not pinch hitting there shows how his finger is bothering him. This is one of the big storylines, some big at-bats for the Dodgers there at the end, Anthony. And Freddie Freeman, who is not expected to go on the injured list, but was not in the starting lineup tonight, clearly not available off the bench in a moment when, with Chris Taylor up, especially, I would say you kind of would have liked to see Freddie Freeman in that spot, given the urgency of the divisional race.
Yeah, I am holding out hope that they just were going to stay away from him no matter what tonight and say, like, we don't think this is an IL stint, but we want to give him, a couple of days. I think this is day 2 in a row where, essentially he just doesn't have to do anything. And, that's the hope. I would say if he's not in there tomorrow, then there's probably some reason for concern. The other thing is too, like if they pinch hit him, they can't retroactively do an IL stint to like when it happened, right? Like, so it starts from the day that you were last in a game. So they may be playing it safe in terms of that also, in case they think that they may have to IL him, but that it's also not a long-term deal. So, trying to save a day there. There's a few different scenarios there. But yeah, the fact that he wasn't pitch hitting in those situations meant that he was not going to be it tonight.
Yeah. And we'll get to some of the quotes about Freddie Freeman and his injury later in the show, but we appreciate the super chat 300 there as well. Again, the Dodgers lose this one 3-2 to the Orioles. The National League West lead down to 3 games. Anthony, the Padres 26-8 in their last 34. And the Dodgers have been pretty good. Like the Dodgers haven't been bad over their past 30.
Baseball since the All-Star break.
Yeah. It's just that the 2 teams right behind them can't seem to do anything wrong. The Padres go down again tonight and then come back to win, of course. It is still a 3-game lead. I guess we can take solace in that. There's lots of teams around the league, the Guardians, the Mariners among them, who have blown massive divisional leads. The Dodgers, at least, are still clinging to theirs. And I would argue have less of a gripe because of how well the teams behind them. It's not like they're choking as much as the teams behind them just can't seem to find a way to lose.
Yeah, the Dodgers aren't collapsing. It's just these other teams have been really good, and I think until this weekend, I don't know if since the break if they've even played the Padres or the Diamondbacks, right? Like, so they haven't had a chance to really create separation that way either. Like I said, I think they're the 3rd best record in baseball right now, and the 2 teams ahead of them are the 2 teams chasing them, right? So even though they're playing well, they can't create any separation. And the Padres, man.
2-game series, by the way. Dodgers played the Padres twice in San Diego, lost in extra innings, lost 8-1. But to your point, just 2 opportunities, none against the Diamondbacks, although that's about to change at the end of this upcoming week.
Yeah, that's going to be a big series. But yeah, to my point about the Padres being like, they won't stay down. I mean, they very easily could have 6 more losses in that stretch.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've got some come from behind wins, and they're doing it like it's just, it's just normal business for them at this point. Like that's frustrating as the, if you're a Diamondbacks fan or a Dodgers fan, watching them do that, 2 or 3 times a week, it seems like, is just, that's got to be maddening.
Yeah. Padres down 5-4 in the 7th inning tonight and come back to win that one. Again, that's just what they do. So again, looking at this one, it's sort of a back and forth affair from the Dodgers. They go down early. They end up taking the lead in early on when Mookie works a 2-out walk. Teoscar Hernandez capitalizes and knocks him in to tie this game. Unfortunately, the Orioles come right back, 2-1 down. They hit a 2-run home run, and then that was kind of it. The Dodgers had an opportunity in the 5th, Anthony, a leadoff double and walk from Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor. And with Ohtani, Mookie, and Teoscar up in that situation, you're expecting something. Ball barely gets out of the infield. Infield pop up, shallow right field, fly out, and then a line out to right field from Teoscar. That felt like the big moment for them to get something. They put a couple guys on in the 9th inning. They had an opportunity in the 8th inning with Will Smith up, and Will Smith I know is going to be a talking point here, but I just want to hover over the fact that Dodgers again had some opportunities tonight. 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Teoscar 1 for 3, Betts 0 for 1, Taylor 0 for 1, Ohtani 0 for 1, and Smith 0 for 2. So this one's on the offense, and it was a shared experience, I would say, across a lot of guys in this lineup.
Yeah. Maybe, it seemed to be one of those nights. They did hit some balls hard. Mookie hit into that double play in the 1st inning, I think.
Yeah.
But
ruined my Shohei Ohtani over 0.5 stolen bases bet tonight, Anthony. We need to give that guy an opportunity to take a lead.
Favors there. But he smokes that ball. Chris Taylor on the last out smokes that ball. I think Teoscar on that line out, he hit that, looked like pretty well, but just right at him. So they had some swings that were pretty good. The strike zone didn't do them any favors tonight. And I know, like, yes, guys, you would like to see them adjust. Also, you'd go, well, they're still making outs. Like, all those pitches weren't like strike threes, but, and then this isn't to give them a complete pass, but like those change at bats.
Yeah.
It changes the situation of the plate appearance. It changes sort of the strategy. It changes the mindset and changes what the pitcher is going to do.
Yeah.
So it's not the end all be all, but aside from it being a strike to change the count, it really does change an at bat. And when it happens repeatedly in a 1-run game, I mean, it's going to happen. I can't wait to see that report card tomorrow.
It's going to be rough. You mentioned some hard hit balls by the Dodgers that didn't land. They had a 107.7 mile an hour line out from Max Muncy with an expected batting average of 660. They had a 103.2 mile an hour lineup from Will Smith with an expected batting average of 550. And they had a 101.7 mile an hour lineup from Teoscar Hernandez with an expected batting average of 550. So 3 of the 8 hardest hit balls of the game from the Dodgers all go for outs. If you look at the top 8 hardest hit balls in this game, the Orioles had 4. Home run, single, home run. The Dodgers had 4. They went 1 for 4 on there. So Orioles 4 for 4 on their hard hit, balls over 102 mile an hour. Dodgers just 1 for 4. We got another super chat here from Richard. Richard, we appreciate you, a regular loyal listener, watcher of us. So thank you so much. And thank you for the super chat. He says, blame the strike zone all you want, but 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. 5th inning was a big blow. That was the one I mentioned with the top of the order coming up and 2 runners on, nobody out. The injury reports from the Dodgers are as accurate as my dog ate my homework, not being honest with Glass. Now, we'll get to that. Let's talk the strike zone because Richard mentions it. I actually don't disagree with Richard, except to say it can be both. Like 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position is problematic. Entirely, wholeheartedly agree with you. While at the same time, I would say the strike zone, like, we don't have to choose between these. Both of these were factors. And when some of those at bats with 2 strikes in the terrible strike zone are with runners in scoring position, those things are related. Of course, Will Smith, a disgraceful strikeout in the bottom of the 8th, a disgraceful strikeout to Tommy Edman in the bottom of the 9th, a disgraceful strike 2 to Max Muncy in that at bat. I mean, these were all huge at bats in key spots, Anthony. And so, yes, 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position, but they might have been 2 for 8 if they get a couple calls that go their way, and this could be a 4-3 Dodgers victory.
Yeah, and a couple of points here. The 1 for 8, yes, and it's like, be better, but also like year over year over year over year. You look at, and this is just not saying that this is what the count was when all these calls happened, but to show you that the difference in one pitch here or there and how it can change the complexion of an at bat and then eventually the complexion of a game. You look at batting averages every single season.
Yeah.
From 1-0 versus 0-1,
Right.
and then 2-1 versus 1-2. They are pretty telling in terms of how they benefit whoever's ahead in the count. So that's one thing. Two, I saw on Twitter and I see some people in the comments saying like, okay, well, you got to figure out that the umpire is making these kinds of calls. His zone is wide. You have to make that adjustment. It's not that easy. You've been conditioned your entire baseball playing career to, especially in the Dodgers organization, to do things a certain way. And then you go, okay, well, this umpire is expanding the zone. You need to swing at pitches that are out of the zone. Their brains don't work like that immediately. Also, it takes some time. It might take half the game for that dugout to realize, to differentiate between, are those a couple of bad calls or is this what the zone is tonight?
Yeah.
Because you might get one of those calls in the first inning and the second one might not come into the third inning. Yeah. But you also got one that went in your favor. So, you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily a trend until, it doesn't always work out that way. It became very obvious, like in the 7th, 8th inning.
Yeah.
And by then, that's tough because guys are also at that point, guys are trying to get the counts in their favor. And those balls are clearly off the plate. And to say like, well, you just got to swing at that. It's much easier said than done when you're standing in the box and you're a hitter and you've conditioned your brain to say, that's a ball, don't swing at that.
Yeah. So just doing a quick search and finding this. So this was a study that was done, kind of a compilation of statistics back, 7 or 8 years ago. But I imagine this hasn't changed all that dramatically. They basically looked at the entirety of the American League between 2015 and 2017 and what their batting average was on every individual type of count. Okay. So let's imagine you're at a 1-1 count. And at this point, a 1-1 count, the batting average on this count is 332. That's the average, league average on a 1-1 count. If it goes to 1-2, that drops to a 166 batting average. If it goes to 2-1, it jumps to a 344 batting average. So this is statistically just like the outcome. So if you get a 1-1 pitch that should be a ball but becomes a strike, it's a 180-point difference in average batting average over a three-year season in the American League in this case. Again, I'm assuming this hasn't changed all that much, even if it's 150 points, right? You can see how one pitch goes, right? And even if you're at a 2-1 count, the difference between a 3-1 count, which is a 363, and a 2-2 count, which is 183, same thing. These are 180-point swings by bad calls. In the case of Will Smith, it was 3 consecutive bad calls, and that was with runners in scoring position. So to go back to Richard's point, the 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position, one of those should have been a walk from Will Smith, and then all of a sudden the lineup moves along, and who knows what happens from there, but he never gets that opportunity. And I will say, there's part of me that thinks if you see that pitch called a strike twice, you've got to protect, right? You've got to expand the zone a little bit.
At bat, I agree. In your own at bat, that part of it I agree with.
Totally.
Like if you are, pick a hitter, if you're Max Muncy and you see that pitch called 2 innings before,
right? It's tough
in a one instance, and then you come up and you get the same call. Well, okay, that's tough to be like, well, you should swing at that because he called it earlier. If you're seeing it multiple times in the same at bat that your own at bat, then you probably need to start trying to fight something off with 2 strikes there.
Yeah. And I want to come back to Will Smith. So I see some comments, but let's get to some of these super chats. John LaFond saying Ryan Brazier killing it. Another solid performance from Ryan Brazier. He gave up his first hit since coming back, but 1 inning, just 1 hit. He throws 11 pitches, 9 of them from strikes. Again, the Dodgers bullpen, Vesia, it wasn't pretty. 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Brazier, 1 hit. Kopech gives up the walk and 2 strikeouts. So it is 4 base runners in 3 innings, but just 1 hit, no earned runs, 4 strikeouts. The bullpen does their job. And I'll admit, Ryan Brazier was not a guy I was expecting to be impressed by and to trust. And yet all he does is fill up the strike zone. And again, I think this is like his first in 12 batters that he's faced, I think he's now given up 1 hit or something like that.
Yeah, one of the things that the Dodgers tend to do is they look for guys who just have the raw stuff, and typically like maybe guys who have struggled elsewhere. We've seen it with them over and over, or guys who got DFA'd or something like that, or you can get cheaply in a trade because they think if they can get the guy to harness his stuff enough to fill up the zone, then the stuff will play. And a lot of times for them, it works. We've seen it not work, but a lot of times it does work for them. And I think that a guy like Brazier, as long as he can not give free passes out, he's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Godfrey wants to know, is it just me or do the Dodgers have way more bad calls against them? I think there's an umpire scorecard, like sort of quantity for the season where you can look at plus and minus on the whole.
Yeah.
I imagine we remember the bad ones, we forget the good ones, and obviously we're studying these when it's against the Dodgers. But it's so I don't think my personal view, I don't think there's some bias against the Dodgers. I don't think it's we're worse off than everybody else. I just think umpiring isn't very good, and you play enough of these games, there's going to be a bunch like this, Anthony, where it just feels like umpire wanted to get home and you were on the receiving end of it.
Yeah, a couple of things is like, people don't complain about things until it's bad for them, right? Like you don't necessarily, get on Yelp and see all of the great reviews necessarily. But we're looking at it from the Dodgers point of view, so we always remember those. And I think that the other part of this too is that the Dodgers are a lot more patient than most teams. And so you're gonna get probably a bigger share of these types of games and these types of calls than teams who are sort of more free swinging. It's kind of what the Dodgers as an organization preach. And back to my point about like changing your mentality when you have an expanded strike zone too. We're going to remember those. The umpire scorecard for this particular game will come out in the morning though, and we'll see. And they put some expected numbers on that, and how much it kind of costs a team. I would very much expect that the Dodgers come out on the negative end of this one.
Yeah, it felt like it. Jonathan said it may seem like a 3-2 loss, but Roberts assures us this game will be recovering soon and may end up a 4-3 win after a rehab assignment. So again, we're going to get to some injury stuff here later, but Jonathan, I appreciate the humor because it does feel like, and Anthony and I have been having these conversations about guys like Tyler Glasnow, and then the update comes, and sometimes it feels inevitable that the update you think you're going to get and the update that you actually get and where it ends up doesn't seem to always make all that much sense. And I think as Dodgers fans, we're starting to get used to that. I do want to talk Will Smith, Anthony. He's been really bad. Everybody who watches this shows knows that I'm a huge Will Smith fan. 0 for 4 tonight with 2 strikeouts. Again, we just talked about the 1 strikeout. The OPS on the season remains solid, 750. And yet we know how bad he has been, not just for the last few weeks, but for the last few months.
Yeah.
All that said, I'm still surprised at how negative the vibes are around Will Smith when it comes to the interactions that I have. And I know, look, social media is one thing. Not everybody, the loudest people are not necessarily representative of, and I'm not even saying like flat out, these people are crazy and these people are wrong. I'm just trying to make sense of it. This is a guy who has had a bad second half this year. He had a bad second half last year. And yet over the last 4 seasons, has more wins above replacement than any catcher in Major League Baseball. So just give me your zoom out a little bit, take off the hat, the fan hat for a second. Is there reason for serious concern and negativity towards Will Smith as far as skepticism of whether or not he's going to break out of this?
Yeah, I think it's been too long to call it a slump. It's kind of the way his season is going at this point. Like you said, there are some still silver lining numbers that are hanging out, but I think and like I said, I've said this before about him when me and you are on. I haven't seen the story yet and I may have missed it. I'm not saying that it hasn't been written. Maybe I just didn't see, but I haven't seen the story yet that talks about here's what the coaching staff or here's what he feels is not going right. Here's what's off. It's mechanical, or it's maybe he feels like he's chasing pitches that he shouldn't be, or whatever the case may be. I haven't seen that story yet, and so I don't know what they see as the issue right now. We've said it before, you wish you could afford at that position to give him an entire series off.
Yeah.
Something like that. They can't right now. Also, like, he's becoming a better defensive catcher.
Yeah, he's one of the best in baseball.
Yeah, and this is a 10-year contract. He's not going to catch for 10 years of it. So at some point they're going to make that decision. But like, you wish that he could DH, but then you got Ohtani. You wish he could play first base, but then you got Freddie Freeman, who plays essentially every day. And can he learn third base or something like that? Like, we're going to find all this out, later on down the road during the life of this contract. But I think we're beyond a point where, like, it's a concern. And is he going to break out of this?
It's interesting because the underlying stuff, just pulling it up, all remains just about everything is 60th percentile or higher. And I'm not saying 60th percentile is good. Don't hear me wrong. But I'm saying for a guy who's had a 200 batting average, it feels like for 5 months to look down and say 72nd percentile for barrel rate, 66th percentile expected slugging rate. He doesn't whiff. He doesn't strike out. 69th percentile for walk rate. Squares it up 61% of the time. Hard hit 60% of the time. 60th percentile. Like, I'm just looking at these numbers. And so, again, I'm not I'm genuinely trying to step back and say, I don't know what is happening here. I'm encouraged that the underlying stuff does not line up necessarily with the actual performance, although expected batting average is really bad. So expected batting average, actual batting average, those two numbers line up. But is there an element of bad luck here? Is there an element of some of these numbers are buoyed by just how incredible he was for the first 30 to 45 days of the season? Like, I just genuinely don't know what's reasonable to expect for the guy moving forward.
Yeah, I think I'm beyond the point of thinking, like, if you keep running him out there every day, he's just going to magically break out of it, because it's been too long. It's not like this is a 2 or 3 week slump where, like, that still feels like a possibility. This feels like he's having a bad season now. And that's tough. And the fact that the lead is only 3 games at this point means that they really can't afford to say, take these next 2 games against Baltimore off, and we're going to also give you the first game against Arizona or something like that, right? Like, they're not afforded that luxury anymore. And so, and they're not afforded the luxury of him being a DH for a while because they have Shohei.
Yeah.
So, you just, and I mentioned the defensive aspect of this because they do now want to keep running him out there because he's doing a really outstanding job of helping control the running game with this pitching staff. And so you have to continue to put him in the lineup for at least for that reason.
Yeah.
But he's a hole right now. And it's tough because you keep waiting for him to, like, run into one at least and be like, oh, okay, that's, maybe that's it. And he's not doing it.
Yeah. I'm smiling because 2 things. One, I want to talk about Dalton rushing, but I'm smiling because when I've been critical of Kevin Kiermaier, I've gotten crushed for it because everybody tells me how important the defense is with Kevin Kiermaier. And yet when Will Smith is one of the best, if not the best defensive catcher in baseball this season, 100th percentile in caught stealing above average, it's all DFA Will Smith, and I know the DFA stuff is a joke or a troll, but like it's interesting to me. And I think it just speaks to expectations. Like, if you walk in with Kiermaier and say, we know the bat's not going to be great, but we like the defense, then you are pleased with it and you become defensive. And I know I see Matty Man saying Kiermaier isn't hitting 4th. Smith's been hitting like 7th ever since Muncie's come back and Lux was up. Smith's been hitting 7th. So where he's hitting in the order doesn't have anything to do with this conversation. It has everything to do with expectations, which I think is fair. Like, and I'm not saying that's wrong because Will Smith, you should have higher expectations. The Dodgers just paid him. This is an all-star level type player, but I think it's just interesting the way that we frame defense. But I want to shift this to Dalton rushing because he was in my notes, and this is the perfect sort of transition. He had 2 home runs tonight. Dalton Rushing's hitting .343 with an OPS of almost 1,100 at AAA. And before you say, oh, AAA numbers are inflated, go look at his AA numbers. The guy has hit absolutely everywhere he goes. And I think, I joked about Dalton Rushing possibly getting a 26th man call up to see what he's got in left field or something like that. I mean, I think we're seriously veering towards. I'm hesitant to put a number on this, but like we can't be that far away from. Well, let's just see what happens if Dalton Rushing starts catching some games at the major league level and hitting. Like, does Will Smith get a 2-week vacation? Dalton Rushing comes up to catch some games, because if Smith is this bad, Barnes is no better. We know they don't like Fiducia. Like, it feels like you're nearing the point of, well, do you just try it and see what happens? He is a catcher. Like, he can catch. So it's not like you're squeezing a square peg into a round hole here, even if the defense is a downgrade.
Just because I haven't looked at the lineup at OKC, is he mostly playing the outfield right now, or is he catching also?
That's a great question. I know he had been playing a lot of outfield for OKC. I'll see if I can pull that up as you talk.
My greater point to that is, at this level, and when you're really playing for something, it's more than just sticking a guy at that position because he might be swinging a hot bat in the minors. This is about their first, and you know what? The entire reason they're dealing with this slump from Will Smith is because they like how he handles the staff. So to say, well, let's just run Dalton Rushing out there because he has a OPS above 1 in the minors, it doesn't play in this particular situation. Catcher's really the only position where like it's really different than the other 7 positions out on the field.
Yeah.
Because that guy also has to be handling a pitching staff that you are looking to lean on to take you to the World Series. And I can tell you right now, they're just not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see David here, primarily left field. He's played 16 games, 143 innings. He's played exclusively left field. Maybe and a couple games at designated hitter. So only left field. He did catch 39 games at Double-A. So he's got 324 innings of catching experience this season. But I'm with you. I'm just saying, like, we're all looking at the numbers. And again, I'm a Will Smith guy. I'm not even defending it. Like, I think we're getting to the point where, the argument had long been, well, Austin Barnes, game calling, you just give up all the rest of that stuff. And you just take, that's why Austin Barnes would catch games in the playoffs. Will Smith is that guy. Like, Will Smith, from a defensive like, if you take offense off the table, Will Smith is now the non-offense valuable catcher that they have because of the way he controls the running game. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, they valued that in the past. Do they continue to value it in the form of Will Smith and not Austin Barnes? Or do they throw a dart at the board and say, Dalton Rushing, let's see what we got. He doesn't need to be added to the 40-man even next year. That's kind of the tricky part, I believe. Yeah. I believe his Rule 5 year is not until like a year and a half from now. But, I just think it's an interesting conversation. And Anthony, the longer this slump goes on, to your point, it's not a slump anymore. It's, May, June, July, August, 4 months, 3.5 months now. I think there's questions that are going to be asked. And I think Dalton Rushing is a guy that, if he continues to do what he's doing down in Oklahoma City, rightfully so. So let me just ask you straight up. If 10% chance Dalton Rushing is catching games for the Dodgers? Under.
0% chance.
0% chance. I like that. You know what, Anthony? I'm going to give you this. I like the definitive nature. There's no hemming and hawing on that. There's no sitting on the fence. No. 0%. I respect it. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over. Give me 10%. Okay, all right. Dalton Rushing catching games for the Dodgers.
Then I will say this. If it happens, it won't be anything meaningful. Like, you're tied for the division the last 10 days of the season. They're running him out there behind the plate. That's not going to happen. Yeah. If he is a call up in that situation and they want to give him some innings behind the plate, it'll happen early on probably.
Yeah.
I could listen to the case of, like, maybe they run him out there in left field and see what happens for a little bit, but Teo's not struggling like that, right? Like, once they moved Mookie out to right, they had their outfield set for October, assuming everybody's healthy and fine. So even that is a little bit of a stretch. But yeah, I'm 0 real innings behind the plate for Dalton Rushing this season for the Dodgers.
I like it. I appreciate your commitment to this. Let's get to some of these super chats. John, reality, Dodgers 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position, 7 left on base. Again, totally agree. If they had been 3 for 8, none of the strike zone stuff matters. We're not even talking about it because they win this game. But Ohtani, Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, all guys who had opportunities. Teo is 1 for 3. I'll leave him off the list. Betts, Ohtani, Smith, and of course Chris Taylor, guys who had opportunities.
And Teo hit another ball hard too. One of those outs that he made was a hard hit ball at least too.
Rod says frustrated MLB doesn't have a challenge system. I've said, Anthony, I've seen it at the AAA level. I love it.
It works, and it's fast.
Yep, exactly.
It works and it's quick. Which are the two things that baseball really concerned itself about with these kinds of things. It's been proven to be successful in the minors. I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, it's a challenge system. I don't know if it's a team or a batter gets so many challenges per game. The team, and all you got to do if you're the hitter is you step out of the box and like you either tell the umpire, or I think some places the minors like look up at the press box where the replay is, and they kind of point up there and they said we want that replay, and that answer comes back in seconds because they're looking at the same things we're looking at, whether it be on game day or the box on TV or whatever it might be. That answer comes back in seconds and the guy's right back in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's awesome. I mean, I saw it in Reno. Yeah. It's fantastic. Everybody looks up at the board. You see the results and things move on. Godfrey says games like these get magnified because the Diamondbacks and Padres keep winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Godfrey, 1,000,000% yes. 1,000,000 times yes. Again, we're talking about them as if they're just completely falling off a cliff. They have the third best record in baseball since the All-Star break. Yeah. They just finished a 5-game winning streak. I think they just went like 10-4, 10-5 over a 15-game stretch or something like that. Like, still one of the best teams in baseball. It's just the two teams of the 29 other teams that are better than them right now since the All-Star break are the two teams in their division that are chasing them. Yeah,
I agree. And I mean, I haven't checked. Are the Dodgers still probably at least in the hunt for the best record in Major League Baseball, I would imagine? 78-54. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best. I think that's the best, tied with the Phillies for the best record in Major League Baseball. Best win percentage, 591. So there you go. Jeff, Will Smith is batting 165 the past 30 days with 1 homer and 8 RBIs. Who is to blame in putting him in the top 4 in the lineup? If anybody, I have been so critical of lineups for the Dodgers this season. I would not be putting Will Smith 4th in the lineup. I think I can understand, and this is like, I understand why. Will Smith has hit lefties actually really well this year. And even since May 1st, I was just looking up the split because I was like, they talked how he's been one of the best hitters in baseball against lefties. I think he's got like a 148 weighted runs created plus against lefties on the season. So I was like, all right, well, starting May 1st when he's been terrible, what's it been like since then? He's hitting 188 against lefties, which you might say, well, there you go. He sucks. Actually, on base slugging, combined OPS of almost 800, weighted runs created plus is 101. So he's basically been league average against left-handed pitchers. There was a lefty on the mound. All that said, I'm with you 1,000%. Will Smith should be batting 7th. He should be batting 8th. And I'm perfectly content with that. There's no justification for me, Anthony, even against the lefty, putting him up there. Because I know Muncie's numbers against lefties. I'd still trust Muncie more. I trust Kike more against lefties now. So I'm with you, John. No arguments with me. I'm with you. And I see 188 does suck. I agree with you again. His on-base percentage has been good. The slugging has been good. I laugh that a guy, Anthony, with a 188 batting average has a weighted runs created plus that's above average. He's an above average hitter hitting 188. A, because teams suck against lefties. And B, you draw a bunch of walks, and I guess that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I got nothing to add to that. I mean, he shouldn't be hitting that high in the order. He has been bad. He's just right at the level of replacement level. Yeah. So, I don't know what the answer is.
Nobody here is defending it. Like, I guess that's the bottom line. Like, we're all on the same side of the fence screaming at Dave Roberts and saying, what the hell are you doing with these lineups? Because when he's had to mix and match, when it feels like he has to get creative and get cute, is when things go sideways. And yet, I thought there were decisions he made tonight that were fine, but I think lineup construction on the whole this season has been confusing at best.
Yeah. And we can be nitpicky about the lineup stuff. Like,
they have the best.
It doesn't really matter till it matters. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it is what it is. But I'm in agreement with everybody. He has no business at this point hitting that high in the lineup.
Yeah. Look, I don't know why Kike's hitting 8th. I mean, like, against a lefty, to have Kike hitting way down there behind Smith, Edman, Rojas, and Muncy is confusing to me. Maybe a little protection for Muncy, but anyways, let's talk Jack Flaherty. We haven't had any conversation about him. As always, thank you to everybody, by the way, joining us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We appreciate you. Flaherty's final line tonight, 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. He had a 24% whiff rate on swings. He got 24 called strikes across 6 innings. I don't have anything creative to say other than about Jack Flaherty, other than Anthony. He continues to be pretty much exactly the guy I thought they were getting. He was solid again tonight. He battled. It wasn't pretty, but he just continues to seemingly get the job done every time he takes the ball.
Yeah, it was a solid start tonight. He left a couple of, I'm going to hang it. Let's see if you bang it. And they did.
Yeah.
Which, now that we're watching him every start, he's got a little tendency to leave some balls dangling in the zone.
Yeah.
I would say that is the one bugaboo that I've seen so far. But he's been solid. The one interesting thing is what the run prevention numbers are. I think it was like the 1st through 4th inning or 1st through 5th inning or whatever it is, and then what it is after that.
Yeah. So,
probably a guy that is not going to have a long leash after 15 or so outs. Give or take. So
he got the leash tonight. I mean, that 5 2/3. He's got runners on 1st and 2nd, a lefty up, and Dave left him in. That was I was surprised by the decision. It ends up working out, and that
still looked pretty good.
Yeah,
his stuff still looked pretty good. It looked like he still had pretty decent command. During that stretch, I was never like, Dave's got to move him.
Yeah.
Dave's got to take him out. I
never.
Because
you didn't have under 17.5 outs recorded tonight, Anthony. If hypothetically somebody had under 17.5, they might have been frustrated they didn't go to Vestia against the lefty there. I'm just saying.
Oh, ouch.
The ball goes off the wrist. You're thinking cash it. Just, fifth inning, cash that off the wrist. He comes back out. I mean, kudos to Flaherty. Again, I see somebody in the chat, like, what was your thoughts? Because I joked, all eyes going to be on post game. And what they say about the wrist. The fact that he stayed in, sat in the dugout, came back out, pitched a full inning tells me, clearly they felt around and aren't too worried about this. But I was surprised with how they handled him. But, again, kudos to Flaherty getting the full 6th inning, letting Vestia come in the 7th and work a clean one. The bullpen getting 3 clean innings. I think part of that credit goes to Flaherty kind of being able to close his deal out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that had to be on Dave's mind a little bit. The bullpen had just blown 2 leads in the previous series. So, I think that probably had a little something to do with it too. His stuff looked good when he came back out again. I think there's probably very little concern there. This is a Dodger staff too and medical staff that is hyper cautious with these guys when it comes to stuff like this. Like, I thought he was coming out, whether he felt fine or not. When I saw where it hit him, looked like it missed any of like the sensitive, like the super sensitive stuff, right? Like the pinky or maybe that little wrist bone. Looked like it was higher than that. But I thought he was coming out. I was like, there's no way they're letting him stay in. And I
believe it was Colton Cowser, and that ball was 71 miles an hour off the bat. So
it wasn't.
We're not talking about 110.
Doesn't mean it didn't hurt.
No.
But you looked at his face too, like in the slow-mo replay.
Yeah.
And that's the face of a guy who I think thought he was coming out.
Yeah.
But they left him in and he came back out and pitched another inning and got through it. I don't have any concern right now. It looked like he wasn't too concerned either. So, just one of those bad luck things. The play he did make on that ball that was coming back at his head, though. Crazy. Glad that's not the one that hit him.
Yeah. I'm with you. Dave Roberts, by the way, confirmed Freddie Freeman was not available tonight. They're going to reevaluate his status tomorrow.
Makes sense.
Blake Williams is down in the clubhouse getting that. This is also from Blake. Jack Flaherty said his wrist didn't bother him while he was pitching the 6th. He feels fine right now. Might need to wait and see how it's feeling tomorrow. Roberts said that he should be fine, likely to have some swelling. During the game, Flaherty assured Roberts he was okay, and they kept a close eye on him after that. So there you go. The number from Flaherty, Anthony, that stood out to me, and I posted this on Twitter. He threw 41 fastballs tonight. 17 of them were called strikes. That's a crazy number. 17 of 41 fastballs, dudes are just staring at.
Yeah.
And that's entirely a testament to how nasty his breaking stuff. That stuff is so gross that dudes have to protect against it. So then when they see 95-mile-an-hour fastball coming at them, they don't even have time to react. So 17 called strikes on fastballs. Again, just an absurd number from Jack Flaherty. And it helps him get to this line. 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Let's get to some injury updates, Anthony, because in addition to the Flaherty news, there was some, dare I say, interesting commentary pregame from the Dodgers, from Dave Roberts, as far as some guys' health. You want to start with the good news or the bad news, Anthony? I'll let you choose today.
We need to end on a positive note. So let's start with
bad news first. Okay, let's start with the worst possible news. Tyler Glasnow. Rehab is moving, quote, rehab is, quote, slow moving. He will need a rehab appearance. Dave Roberts saying, quote, the coming days will be telling as to whether or not he will be built up in time for October. Roberts added, he just isn't getting better. He's not getting worse, but the sore elbow is not getting better. It's nearly September. Labor Day is this upcoming weekend, Anthony, and to hear that our star pitcher is not improving, slow moving, needs a rehab appearance, whether he's built up for October in jeopardy. I mean, this might be worse than the game we just watched. The Dodgers lost 3-2, and the Glasnow update we got pregame might be worse, Anthony.
This is absolutely worse. If you told me before the day started that the Dodgers will lose this one by a run, but Glasnow will be back as soon as possible based on the IL stint, I'd be like, let's book it.
Take it.
Let's take it. I was told several times, in chats and on Twitter that this was a phantom IL stint.
Yeah.
We were both saying, no, it's not. That's not how this is playing out. And the Dodgers Dave also said, minimum time.
Yeah.
He'll be back when he's eligible.
Max Muncy and Tyler Glasnow, baby. They'll be back as soon as possible.
Look, this is not good.
No,
this is not good because depending on how long this plateau lasts for him, it's that much longer for the buildup.
Yeah.
And if he gets right back, if he comes back like right up against it, like end of September, and he does take the ball in the playoffs, like you're looking at like a 5-inning max.
Yeah, if even that.
You know what I mean? Like depending on when he does come back, it could be shorter than that. Yeah. That's not good news for a guy who you're looking to lead the rotation.
Yeah. And, Flaherty has been good. He has not been great of lately. We're going to get to Yamamoto in a moment, about to start a rehab appearance. And so the number of things on the Dodgers bingo card that you feel like you can write in permanent marker seems to be getting smaller and smaller as it relates to starting pitching. I do think there's some encouragement sort of down the pecking order, if you will, guys that maybe we're more confident about today than we were a month ago. But none of that matters if the numbers 1, 2, and 3 guys aren't filled out the way that they need to be. And with Glasnow, again, the update is that rehab is, quote, slow moving. He will need a rehab appearance whenever he starts pitching again, which is not yet. The coming days will be telling, and that Dave Roberts adding he just isn't getting any better. His October buildup is definitely now in question. The other bad news is Freddie Freeman is, quote, doing fine. He wanted to play tonight, but Dave Roberts says the team is trying to get his fractured finger some rest. They are not anticipating putting him on the injured list because 10 days isn't going to change anything, basically, as far as how his finger heals. They're just hoping a couple days, the day off yesterday, a day off today, maybe one more day off some point in the coming days is sort of, I don't know, helps, makes him feel a little bit better, but he's got a fractured finger and he's going to have to play with it. And so the fact that there's even a level of concern that would say, give him the day off today. I'm not going to say this is nearly as concerning as Glasnow, but when a situation where you feel like you need everything to, no pun intended, break your way, this is not the kind of update you wanted from Freddie Freeman today.
I mean, I sort of expected it. I didn't think he was going to play. Like, I thought it would be excellent news on the finger front if he was in the lineup. So when he wasn't in it, I wasn't very surprised. You know, they like to stack days. All teams do, not just the Dodgers. They like to stack days. So when you have an off day, you know, they like to, if you're nursing an injury or if, you know, they're saying you need rest or whatever, like they like to stack them in that way with the off day. So this wasn't too surprising for me. The fact that they haven't put him on the IL and the fact that Freddie thought, you know, he could go today is good news. And guys can play with the fractured finger, depending on which finger it is. And it sounds like for him, it's going to be okay. So yeah, I mean, this one for me, like I wouldn't necessarily classify it as bad news. At least I didn't when I saw it. Now, if that's the Dodgers, so if he misses this entire series,
yeah,
then I start to get concerned.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go to the good. Let's cleanse the palate here, Anthony, and let's talk Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He had a bullpen. It went really well, Anthony. He's going to start his rehab appearance with Oklahoma City on Wednesday. 2 innings pitched is the expectation. We're talking about one starting pitcher, one ace level guy going the wrong direction. Good news. The other one seems to at least be progressing in a way that many of us assumed might never happen this season. So still some speed bumps ahead, right? Clayton Kershaw went on his rehab appearance and then got shut down again. So hopefully that's not the case with Yamamoto, but some good news here that he is a great bullpen and starting a rehab appearance on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the positive news with him also is like all the steps in this progression have been smooth so far.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. With Kershaw is a little different because he was missing the entire season and this was his first time coming. You know, Yamamoto's obviously pitched this year, and the ramp up to this point has been as expected. So that's positive.
Yeah.
I mean, he's coming back at a time when they really need him, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, you look at the starting pitching from the Dodgers, and in order for this group to be good, in order for the 4, 5, and 6 guys that we could have a conversation about to sort of matter, you need 1, 2, and 3, because you could like Gavin Stone as much as you want. If he's your number 2 starter in the postseason, we've got issues. You could be bullish on Bobby Miller after one encouraging start, and yet if he's your number 3 starter, you've got issues. Even Clayton Kershaw, as much as I love him, if he's anything other than your 4th starter, we've got issues. And I know there are people that are going to tell me, even if he's your 4th starter, you've got issues. But the Dodgers need Tyler Glasnow back. They need Yoshinobu Yamamoto back, and they need Jack Flaherty to kind of hang on, baby. Keep some gas left in the tank as this season winds down, in order for this all to matter. And in the midst of all of it, Anthony, they're in the midst of a divisional race that is down to 3 games. Let's get to some questions here. We got about 10 minutes left. As always, we appreciate over 1,500 people here on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. We got a super chat here from John. Corbin Burns gave up 2 extra base hits to Rafael Devers on Corbin's last start. Devers bats left. Number 42 for Ohtani tomorrow. I love this, John, first of all, because it's a super chat, but more importantly, because there's optimism here. Ohtani, number 42 tomorrow, Anthony, yay or nay?
I like it. Let's do it. 42 tomorrow.
There you go. That's a layup question for us all to say yes. We're rooting for the Dodgers. We're rooting for Shohei Ohtani. That'd be a nice, you know, it feels like he's due. It's been what, like 3 or 4 days, Anthony? Jeez Louise, I can't go this long.
If he gets out of August, he's got 41 right now, right?
Yeah.
If he gets out of August with 43, which is it seems very doable for him.
Yeah.
Whew, man, it starts to look real good.
Yeah, I'm with you. John, we appreciate the super chat. Noisy Ninja with the question. I'm confused by the Lux pinch hit. Why take Kike out when he has at least 1 hit? Wouldn't it have made more sense to keep Kike in and take Chris Taylor out for Lux? It was just a lefty-righty thing. Gavin Lux, one of the best hitters in baseball against righties. Kike Hernandez hits lefties better. So with the righty reliever on the mound, look, I was questioning why Lux wasn't pinch hitting for Rojas. Rojas gets the single, and then Lux pinch hits later. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. With 2 outs, they probably, Anthony, couldn't roll the dice, because I'd rather have Kike up against a righty than Chris Taylor. But in order to get to Chris Taylor, that Kike spot, which ended up being Lux, needs to reach base. So it felt like Dave was kind of running out of options there if Freddie Freeman truly was unavailable.
Yeah, I think that was pretty clear what some of that situation was. He was trying to win it then.
Yeah.
Sometimes managers will empty the gun. They'll empty the clip if they just do not want to, tax bullpen or short bench, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They'll say like, we're going to win it or lose it right here, kind of thing. That's probably how Dave was managing this one, considering the bench.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Richard asks, how long does Doc stay with Ferris Bueller? I keep telling you, Richard, we got to get rid of Ferris because there's a Ferris in the organization. Jackson Ferris, he's really good. But how long does Dave stay with Ferris Bueller? I have more faith taking a cruise on the Titanic. You and I have been pretty consistent on this one, Anthony, that if it were up to us, we'd be doing things differently than the Dodgers have been. And yet, Corbin Burns versus Walker Buehler on Wednesday night, baby.
Yeah, part of this is the way they manage the rotation in the regular season too. Like I think at this, first of all, they're hoping that he digs in the right spot and oil starts to spurt. Like,
and look, Bobby Miller, none of us were expecting positive things from Bobby Miller, and it was encouraging at the very least last time out. So who knows? Maybe they find blind squirrel finds a nut twice in a week. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. There's part of it there, but I also think they need him for rotation construction based on how they want to go, right? Like they like to give guys extra rest. You talked about Flaherty hanging in there. I'm not sure how the Tigers handled him. I haven't looked at that, but he's going to get extra rest with the Dodgers now. And so like Bueller is a part of that plan because he's a guy who can start, maybe not effectively, but he's a guy who can take the ball for you and fill one of those days. So, I don't think that get used to Walker Buehler taking the ball every like 6th day or 7th day or whatever it's going to be. I don't think they're going to boot him from the rotation anytime soon. Like I said, because because Yamamoto's out, because Glasnow's out, they're going to keep him in there at least to sort of extend the rotation.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'll be interesting to see kind of like how this plays out because the Dodgers are now walking the tightrope of trying to keep these guys preserved for the postseason while also recognizing that they're currently in the midst of a massive, fight for the National League West. And so you trot Walker Buehler out there for one particular reason. And that's because you need to preserve guys and you're trying to just save everybody while at the same time you're 3 games up in the division. That's a tough line to balance. And look, until some of these Yamamoto types or Glasnow types actually come back, the options are limited. Now, we all agree Landon Knack is a better option than Walker Buehler. The Dodgers might realize that at some point. But for now, Corbin Burns versus Walker Buehler. Join us on the postgame show tomorrow night because that one should be fun with Walker Buehler on the bump for that one.
It's also, it's a numbers thing too with that. Like they're not going to DFA Walker Buehler. So they're just not going to. It's, we're coming up on September.
I know that Hayward had far more reason, far less credibility, far less loyalty within the organization. But the part of me thinks that it's more likely now because I saw how they did the Jason Hayward thing. That makes me believe it's not likely, but it's slightly more likely than it was in my mind a couple weeks ago.
I'll take that money. They're not going to DFA him.
Look, I agree with you. I'm just saying part of the reason I believe that is because of history and what history has told me.
Wait, you're talking about history about a guy was there a season and a half who really hadn't produced at
I agree.
He wasn't good enough ever to even be a starter on this team, like in a regular as a regular position player. So like that's a lot different than the history they have with Buehler and also the need. They have an actual need for Buehler. They didn't have a need for Jason Hayward this year.
It's true. And again, I'm not saying it's likely. I wouldn't bet on it even slightly. I'm just saying the idea that the Dodgers wouldn't do something because of loyalty or because of that. Jason Hayward, totally agree with you, in a completely different category. And yet I think there's a case to be made that what they did to Jason Hayward could have a greater impact on the clubhouse than if they were to DFA Walker Buehler, just because of the personality and the place that personality held in the 2024 clubhouse, even though in Buehler's case, we're talking about what he did for us 2-3 years ago and kind of where he stands historically. So I'm with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying more is on the table for me after how they handled Jason Hayward.
Even that clubhouse argument is like, look, this is a guy who's well liked, who's been part of the organization his entire professional career, who, if they DFA a guy, 10 starts or whatever it's been after he comes back from second Tommy John surgery, that's not going to sit well with some guys in there either, because they take that stuff seriously. Like, how you treat players, especially veterans, they take that stuff very seriously. Like, I think they understood the Jason Hayward stuff. Like, they got that. Like, even though for Freddie Freeman it sucked because it was one of his best friends and all of that stuff. Sure. But like, they also understood the situation. They understood that his tenure there was short. They understood there was not a place for him, all of that. These guys also know how the Dodgers handle their rotation and what the needs are. And to just flat out cut bait on a guy like Walker Buehler, that's not going to sit well in that clubhouse either. Maybe it's not for the exact same reasons as it was for Hayward. But there would be some people barging into Dave Roberts' office. I can tell you that for sure.
Well, so here's what I'll say. So I've got a good friend that is connected to a guy who used to be on the Dodgers in the last couple of years. And when the Hayward news came out, the word that came back to me is, like, all the stuff you hear about Jason Hayward clubhouse stuff, and most of us talk about it in like theoretical terms because we just heard it. Like, this person was like, Hayward's literally was the guy in the clubhouse. Like, every single person in there, regardless of where they came from, regardless of what position they played, regardless, every single dude like loved Jason Hayward. And so I'm only saying that because it is not overblown. The Hayward clubhouse culture, et cetera, not overblown even in the slightest. And so I do think there's been a ripple effect. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it, because I think at some point you got to make baseball decisions. Again, to me, if you've gone down the road of we're making baseball decisions and not culture decisions, baseball decisions and not loyalty decisions, it makes me wonder how the Walker Buehler story ends. And I hope
the Walker Buehler story has a baseball impact, though. Like,
but you could make a case he's a worse baseball player right now than Jason Hayward was, albeit at a different positions and different needs.
That's fine, and I'm not arguing with you on that. Like, that could absolutely be. There's a case for that.
Yeah.
What he is more valuable, though, for what they're trying to do than Jason Hayward was, because of what
they got 8 guys that could make better starts than Walker Buehler's given.
Okay, but then that means you have to just get rid of that guy. You cannot keep him anymore, and I don't think they're ready to do that. And I think also, like, these are roster decisions. They're not just making these decisions based on like sentiment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they did, then they would have kept Jason Hayward. They would have re-signed Justin Turner. Like, you know what I mean? There's specific baseball reasons why they're keeping this guy around. One of them is pretty obvious. He's giving them length in their rotation, for good or for bad or whatever. Like, at this point, they just need him to get some outs, like between 12 and 15.
I could give him length, Anthony. You give me the ball, I'll give you 6 innings. It might take us a few hours to get there, but I can get you 6 innings.
Your arm might fall off, dude.
I mean, I ain't throwing it hard. It's not going to be hard. It's going to be, we're going to be setting records with some loopers coming down and hopefully finding the strike zone.
Yeah. I mean, my point
is last time 3 1/3.
He has more of a role than Hayward had.
He had 11 1/3 his last 3 starts. Walker Buehler.
Not good. I'm not saying he's been good, but look, I think part of it too is that they don't think Landon Knack is going to be on the playoff roster anyway.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the name we want to put out there, and I'm not saying that they think Buehler is necessarily, but
I hope not.
Then we'll just keep this guy and let that guy continue to do his thing where he's at, and we'll bring him up if we need to. Also, Rosses are about to expand. He may be up too.
Yeah. Yeah. They've got options. I think there was somebody was saying on Robleski, with the way that days lined up and who's going to be a starter on certain days, that Robleski might be the guy, but something to watch. Let's go out with this. One last super chat here from John. Dodgers have not hit good pitching in the past 11 postseason years. Why should we believe the Dodgers will hit this year against the pitchers in the postseason? Dodgers can't hit with runners in scoring position. Here's why, John.
I appreciate it, John, but nobody hits good pitching.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Here's
why it's
why.
good pitching.
Because Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, Gavin Lux, Max Muncy, I'm going to say Will Smith, Tommy Edman, Miguel Rojas. That's why. Kike Hernandez, that's why. Because they're going to have the best lineup in baseball when the postseason happens. I genuinely believe that. They're going to have the best lineup in baseball when the postseason starts. And that's the reason for optimism. That's the reason for hope.
Yeah, like every team's blank, whatever they call their post-game shows, like they all talk about this stuff too, about the guy in the lineup who's hitting 113 over the last 25 games. Like every team has that, or the pitcher who has a 9 ERA over his last 4 starts. Like every team has those things. Every team struggles with guys in scoring position at some point or in some game or whatever. And the reason why the Dodgers might not hit good pitching well is because it's good pitching. And almost all teams don't hit good pitching well. That's why it's good pitching. Otherwise, it'd just be okay pitching, and sometimes it would be okay.
Yeah, John, to your point, Dodgers this season, by the way, 16th in with it on OPS with runners in scoring position. So basically, right league average, smack dab in the middle for the Dodgers this season. So we'll see.
And you know, the Dodgers create more opportunities than almost every other team in baseball too.
Yeah, I was going to try and find if they've got at bats here. 11. Yeah. They're top 5 in at bats with runners in scoring position. It looks like, they're fourth with fourth in at bats with runners in scoring position. So 1,138. So there you go. Well, everybody, that's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate you joining us as always on Dodger Heads. We apologize that we couldn't get a win for you. The Dodgers lose 3-2. Jack Flaherty, okay. Bullpen, solid. Offense, can't get it done. 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Some bad luck from an umpiring perspective. Stay tuned for the umpire scorecard in the morning. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers had chances, even regardless of the umpire, and could not get them done. Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, just couldn't get the job done. Will Smith continues to slump. So lots to talk about. Again, a bad Glasnow injury update, a good Yamamoto injury update. So lots going on in the land of the Dodgers, and they are back tomorrow. Walker Buehler
surprises us tomorrow.
Positively, I assume you're saying, right?
Yes. Well, we're not going to be surprised if he's bad.
That's true. You want to throw a number out there? We going five innings? We getting 5 innings?
2 runs, 7 strikeouts, 2 walks.
Wow. 5 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. You heard it here first. Anthony Witrado. I love it. I am going to go 4 innings, 2 runs. That's going to be my Walker Buehler, which would still be positively surprising.
I would take it.
You and me both. Bullpen, not in terrible shape. Off day yesterday. Only 3 guys used tonight. So who knows? Who knows what happens? So that's Anthony. I'm Jeff. As always, again, thank you for joining us. Check out DodgerBlue.com. If you're on the YouTube page, stick around here because Blake was at the game. Some good post-game press conference stuff. Jack Flaherty speaking to the media. That'll be up on our YouTube page right here, Dodger Blue 1958. And if you're a podcast person, Apple, Spotify, Google, find the Dodger Heads podcast. Go ahead, subscribe, rate, and review. We would greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. As always, go Dodgers.